Hello, and welcome to the Doof Book Club, our monthly live stream discussion of a book chosen by you, our listeners. My name is Matt Freeman, and I'm joined as always by my partner, who I'm sending out on the trail of some dame, Scott Daly.
I'm sure she's entirely trustworthy and we have nothing to worry. Oh no, I
Oh,
died.
oh no, that she
Oh
wasn't
no.
trustworthy.
I didn't see it coming.
No, but how could you have seen it coming?
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Great to see you all here. We hope you're having a wonderful Friday evening. I'm sure we know a lot of people. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat. But if you happen to be here for the very first time, hello and welcome. We are Doof Media. We make podcasts all about the stories that we love. We also arrange and organize and host this monthly book club. Matt, for the 58,000th time, what is a book club?
Well, in this case, each month, Scott and I select 5 books from a pool of books submitted to us by our wonderful Doof community. We put up a poll for all the supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia, and we let them vote on which they'd like us to talk about. The book with the most votes wins, and then we all read it.
And then we meet here on the last Friday of the month, or sometimes the week after that, because some of us forgot the book club was supposed to be last week. And we spend an hour or so chatting all about the book and talking with you fine people. I see a lot of familiar names in chat. I see Aqualungfish. I see Jesse, Shane, Carson, Bishop. Good to see you folks. Hope you're ready to have some fun and talk about some expensive statuettes for the next hour or so.
Yeah.
Matt, what is the book we're covering this week?
Talking about the Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. Coolest name ever. The summary of the book is as follows. Sam Spade is hired by the fragrant Miss Wonderly to track down her sister, who has eloped with a louse called Floyd Thursby. But Miss Wonderly is, in fact, the beautiful and treacherous Bridget O'Shaughnessy, and when Spade's partner Miles Archer is shot while on Thursby's trail, Spade finds himself both hunter and hunted. Can he track down the jewel-encrusted bird, a treasure worth killing for, before the fat man finds him?
That's a pretty enjoyable little summary there.
It is.
All right, Matt, I want to know what you thought of this book and folks at home. Actually, before we do that, I forgot one important step in this whole process. As Matt mentioned, we let people on our Patreon vote for the book, but we also have a special thing where those who attend live get to also vote for what book we're covering next month. So right now I am sending a straw poll for next month's book. We will add the totals from our Patreon vote to these, and we will announce the winner of next month at the very end of the show. You get to choose 2 of these 5 options to vote for. So get started on that. It'll be open until the show is over. All right. Now we're ready to talk about the Maltese Falcon. Matt, what did you think of this novel? And while Matt is doing that, I want you folks at home to let us know what you thought of the book. Had you read it before? Is this the first time you read it? Had you seen the movie? I think we all know which one we're talking about. There's apparently many versions of this film, but when I think of this, I think of the Humphrey Bogart one. Matt, talk to me. What did you think of the Maltese Falcon?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. You know, it was funny. I think this came up because we were talking about how much we enjoy detective fiction.
Yeah.
And we were reading the Bill Hodges novel, Mr. Mercedes, over on Kingslingers. And it kind of, I at least, I'll speak for myself, realized how little detective fiction I've actually read, despite claiming to, like it. And so, we put this book on the book club, and obviously it was chosen. And this is like it's one of the seminal works of hard-boiled detective fiction, and I think I didn't really know what that meant before I read this book. Is the truth, because it's such a strong statement. It's such a unique book. It's such the voice and the tone and everything is just so stark. Like, you see why they made a bunch of like black and white. I don't know. It's such a perfect example of the thing that it is, and you see why it was so impactful. And like, I don't know, it's just fun. Like, it's a fun, windy, twisty book with a unlikable piece of garbage protagonist and a bunch of terrible characters who you want to see bad things happen to, and it's just a delightful kind of low feel bad book, and I loved it. What
Yeah.
did you think?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I really enjoyed this book. I had, of course, watched the Humphrey Bogart film years ago. I don't even remember. It's so long ago that I didn't actually remember the plot of the story, and so I was kind of still hooked at every twist and turn of the book as we went through it all. I love what Bishop is saying in chat, where they say I wasn't far into this book when I wondered when it was written, because it was either using all of the tropes or creating them. And I actually said a comment similar to you, and I was about halfway through the novel, because I was like, if you just picked this book off a shelf, didn't look at the copyright date, you would just be like, oh, so you're just doing all the things that these books like, you're just doing all the noir detective fiction tropes, huh? And it is, because it created them. I mean, not this book in its entirety. A lot of Dashiell Hammett's, like, Sam Spade novels across the board established this genre and what it was, and what the rules of it were. But this is like the perfect example of all of that. And yeah, it just has everything you'd expect these stories to have, everything that would be aped and copied and parodied and complicated and remixed, that for 100 years since the publishing of this book, is all here. It's like remarkably. I guess the thing I'm surprised with is you think like things like this and characters like this, like Sam Spade, and ideas like this, like that they would take time to like refine themselves over time. But it just shocked me how much of the genre is just here in its completeness in this book.
Yeah, it's like he figured out the formula just off the dome and just wrote it down.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I realized as it's good. I did know, of course, like, okay, this is an early work, so I'm not expecting a whole bunch of subversions.
Sure.
I wasn't, and that was actually kind of important, because, like, for example, when we introduce, Miss Wonderly, who is eventually revealed to be Bridget O'Shaughnessy, I was like, okay, this is the femme fatale. We're not going to do a subversion of the femme fatale. This is just the femme fatale.
This is the establishment of the femme fatale. Yeah,
But that was funny, because I'm like, I don't know that I've ever seen a straightforward femme fatale. It's always Jessica Rabbit, where it's like, oh, don't trust her, and like, no, she's actually good. Or like the woman from LA Confidential, or just like any number. I feel like everything we see that has the femme fatale trope is she's actually a good guy, and you were wrong to be suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of refreshing in a hilarious way to just see, like, oh yeah, no, she's actually just bad. And see how that plays out, right? Because it's like there's a simplicity to that, but it's not. But sometimes simplicity is what you need. Sometimes simplicity is what's called for by the story. I think it would have gotten muddy if this story had like a whole bunch of ambiguity and twisty and turny, and like, oh, maybe Bridget O'Shaughnessy was actually no. It's good. It's good that everyone in this book sucks and is double crossing everyone else the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all there is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the plot is complicated enough on its own without adding complication to like the themes of the tropes or anything. Like, the one thing that I think is just so really interesting about this book is that you, the reader, and Sam Spade, the character, essentially have no idea what's going on for 90% of the book, but it is both their character and their desire to just kind of fake it. And like, every interaction is people uncertain how much Sam knows, and Sam being unwilling to say how much he knows. And so he's just kind of not bumbling, because he's not a bumbling detective, but just like maneuvering his way through these situations. And you pointed out something to me right before the show started that I don't think I consciously realized. Mm-hmm. But that once it was like written down and I read it, it was like, oh yeah, absolutely true. Which is that this is entirely told in third person, and that we don't see inside the head of anyone in the book, not even our protagonist. And so we're kind of left at like an arm's length to all of the characters, even Sam, where we don't actually know what Sam's game is either. Like, how much is he playing these characters against each other? When he is willing to take money, is he legitimately willing to take money, or is he just playing them for fools or trying to manipulate? Like, we don't know. And the book never really lets you in on that completely. And it's part of the charm of it, I think.
I totally agree that, like, a huge amount of the tension for me, I realized, especially as the book is wrapping up, is I was like, the thing that I'm really concerned about, the thing I really care about, is not like, are they going to get the Maltese Falcon? It's like, is it going to turn out that this guy who I've been following around this entire book is actually just the fully self-interested, sociopath that he kind of presents himself as, or is there this streak of personal honor that we've seen hints of?
Yeah.
And that's what's so satisfying about the ending is you think like he plays it totally straight as if he's just going to go along with, he carefully concocts the situation where you still can't really tell, because it's like, well, if he was just going to go along with them and take the money, this is a plausible avenue for doing that. But also, it seems like kind of a stretch that he would just absolutely insist on disarming the one guy and all these other details where you're like, kind of sounds like he's setting them up to get snookered. And then you finally, like the last few pages of the book, you learn like, okay, he has carefully set this up so that they get arrested. O'Shaughnessy gets arrested, and most importantly, he gets off scot-free because he is actually pretty selfish.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. He does have a very strong internal like sense of code and morality, and he's not a sociopath. But yeah, he's not like a great person either. I think first of all, I just love the descriptions of characters in these books. Like these, not even something that necessarily gives you like a clear mental image of what the people look like, but just gives you like a feel or emotion for what you're supposed to feel about them when the characters are there. And like Sam Spade's description is just so wonderful. But then like one of the first things that happens in the book is his partner, Miles Archer, is killed. And in an extremely nonchalant, indifferent way, he's just like, oh, better scratch his name off the door. And it's like, this is your dude. Like, this is your partner in this agency. And you just don't seem like you actually give a shit that he's dead. And then, of course, you learn he's been sleeping with his wife. And then I think later in the book, you learn he didn't really actually get along with him very much anyway. I don't know. I don't know if this is the first Sam Spade novel. I don't think it is. But I don't know how much of... Like, I don't know how serialized these actually are versus like how much is there thing we're supposed to know about the character. It never felt like we were supposed to know things about this character going into it, but I didn't know anything about this relationship with his partner. So like, it just came off as like this perfect defining moment of that he doesn't actually seem to give a shit that this guy died at all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely very cold-hearted, right? This is one of those things where I think also, there's an implication that he was a veteran, which I think was
yes,
something we mentioned in some long ago previous discussion about like the foundations of the noir genre is like you've got these traumatized veterans coming home, and like they're just broken men. Actually, they're very messed up, and that's why they behave that way. Like the trope of like why are the private eyes like this? It's like, well, they're vets. That's why. I want to return to what you said about the character descriptions for a second, because number one, yes, I agree with you. Some of the best, just like one paragraph physical descriptions that perfectly stuck with my, like sometimes you get a physical description and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But this was a book where I found like, it was like he was drawing a picture in my brain and then it just stayed there. And I just saw that character from then on. It's really good. Also, I love that like the names that he chooses are great. Like I'm just gonna go through like Sam Spade just has a feel to like a spade is like it's like a tool, but it's also got an edge to it. Miss Wonderly, which is a fake name, it's like she's wonderful, but then her real name is Bridget O'Shaughnessy. Bridget sounds like frigid. We've got like Thursby for some reason just strikes me as kind of like a untrustworthy name. He's not in the book for long. He dies like immediately. But Gutman, the fat man, is named Gutman. I'm like that's perfect.
It's almost to the point of parody. Like where it's just like that's just an absurd. Like the guy that the description is constantly focusing on how big his stomach is named Gutman.
Right.
It's just like, how does that work? It shouldn't work. And yet here we are.
I think it's Carson in chat points out Cairo, where it's like just he's a Levantine, which basically just means he's Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
So his name is Cairo.
Cairo.
Perfect.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it is like it's perfectly absurd, and yet it feels just at home in this world that Hammett has created here, where everything feels, I mean, that's really interesting. Like we talk a lot about detective noir and these kind of detective stories, and it's like the world feels like one step over from our world. Like it's not that we're doing like anything like magical realism or alt world stuff, but it just feels like a different version of the world that we live in. And it feels like these characters are operating in this different world, and the absurdity of the names is I think part of that feeling that you get, for sure.
I think you'll know what I mean when I say it's kind of like John Wick.
Yeah,
it's like,
no, 100%.
It's like
yeah,
there's the subterranean world of assassins, but in this case, it's a world of private detectives and like just these things. Like he goes to the hotel where Cairo is staying, and there's like a hotel detective, and you're like, is that a thing? Are there?
I thought about looking that up, but I forgot to.
I'm just gonna assume it is.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, the John Wick comparison is perfect, actually, because it is just like that. There's this entire world where everyone is a thief and a liar. Only, okay, can we be honest with ourselves for a second, though? Everyone, I guess with Sam Spade accepted, is kind of like stupid in this book. They're just like extremely trusting of people they shouldn't trust, and then like kind of bumbling their way through, and like just half of the stuff that happens in the book is just like Sam either manipulating people or people like bumbling their way into each other. Like the fact that they just so happen to stumble upon the ship captain like just at the same time that she's going there, and then they like their plan for confronting her and the captain is just like go to her house and see if she's there. And they knock on the door, and then the captain's like, "Uh-oh, I better go out the back window." And they're like, "Oh, so we heard that. So we went to the window and he was there." Like it just seems like they're all kind of idiots.
Yeah.
And I like none of these people seem to be like professional thieves. This is just like a rich man obsessed with this story. And then just the people he hired that are cruel and untrustworthy, but ultimately like not really sharp.
Yeah, I mean, all of them are just greedy and dumb, and also like they just don't have. They've gotten themselves into a terrible situation, and they're all backstabbing each other constantly
for nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like they're just all bad people, right? I'm trying to think. Like it's interesting because I feel like very often, in my detective fiction, I want it to be this like really cerebral game of cat and mouse, but this was just a case where it's actually totally satisfactory that everyone else is kind of dumb, doesn't have a very good hand, and they're not very good at playing the hand that they do have.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing here is Sam Spade also doesn't have a very good hand, and what I mean by the metaphor is like he doesn't understand what the hell's going on. So he has to piece everything together by basically just incrementally tricking people into giving him information.
Yeah.
Over and over, or like making them think that he's offered them something and then trading that for more information, which
yeah.
And then he ends up just totally mastering all of them, and it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah, he's great. I want to be clear that I'm excluding Sam Spade from my complaining about the dumbness of these people. Like the only reason Sam Spade just doesn't like immediately like wipe the floor with all of them is that he just doesn't have the full picture. Like if he had the full picture from page 2, this would have been a very, very short book.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like if you contrast this with Sherlock Holmes and that kind of method of detective storytelling, Spade is not typically like looking at the scuff on someone's shoe and deducing that they came from the pier.
Yeah,
maybe he does that kind of thing a couple times. I don't really remember. Usually it really is this like being very like in control of how he portrays himself, and just through wit and gift of gab, basically talking them into telling him things or doing things. That, like, that's the thing that's fun to watch. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun to watch Sherlock Holmes like deduce things from really scanty clues, and it's fun to watch Sam Spade talk his way out of a pickle. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And he's also like very good. I think what he is very good at is understanding people and people's motivation. Like the way he kind of came to the truth of what happened to Miles Archer and O'Shaughnessy's part in it is just knowing him and what he would and wouldn't do. And like, just like taking the known information of how he was murdered and piecing together based on who he was as a person, and just basically finding the truth of it. And that is like really cool to watch, that he understands people. And it's almost if it like to be more explicit on that, like he always sees the worst in people and is almost just entirely proven right every time he does that. Like, what is the worst possible thing that this person could have done? I bet that's what they did. And oh, look, I was right.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, part of this whole genre, right? Like we talked about this a lot when we read Mr. Mercedes, but like the point of this genre is the world is a terrible, awful place filled with liars and cheats and murderers. And the only person that can navigate this world successfully is a liar and a cheat. Who has their own sense of code that is right, barely tiptoeing over the side of good to just enough that we like him, but is essentially still like operating in a world of darkness and deceit.
It's more about you wanting him to win against these people who suck even more.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, you're right that he has a sense of justice. I mean, yeah, like I like that he's explicitly like, yeah, I don't really care about my partner, but a guy like I can't. Yeah. He was my partner, and I can't just let that go.
Yeah.
And that's his sense of justice.
Yeah, it's a very strict code. It's just one that is entirely defined by him, and so like the things he will be and won't be willing to do. I think that's what, like, watching Bridget's like reaction to it is so wonderful, because like she doesn't understand, because she's seen this guy the entire time that's been more than willing to deal and sneak and lie and maneuver his way through things. And then suddenly at the end, he's like, no, you don't understand. You killed him. I can't let you get away with that. And she's like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? I love you though. Don't you know that I love you? And he goes, doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's one funny thing. I guess this is like a 1930s thing, maybe, but just the fact that he was like, maybe I love you too, Dame Toots. And I was like, you don't, though. You definitely don't. You definitely do not.
Well, I love how she even turned that around. It's like, maybe I need a little bit more. And she's like, well, if you love me, you wouldn't need any more. It's like, well, I won't be made a sucker.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't believe either of these people love each other. Like the concept of love in this book is so like the opposite of what any rational human being would describe as love. It's like, no, they wanted to bang each other, and that's it. She was hot, so we banged her.
No, you're right. Like it's funny because I was like, maybe in the 1930s they just had a really weird concept of love, but I think it's actually just like, no, that's a Sam Spade thing, not a 1930s thing. He specifically has a terrible relationship with the female sex, construed as broadly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of the brilliant things about what Hammett does here, actually, is because for a while I was wondering like what the point of the affair with his partner's wife was for the story. Like what. Like, I guess I kept waiting for that to kind of maybe tie back into the overarching plot a little more directly. And then I realized, no, this is just character work. This is just establishing who he is as a person, because we need to know how he feels about women generally. And how he feels about women is very clear here. He's been having an affair with his partner's wife. Again, the specificity of his code is, I cannot let the murderer of my partner go unavenged, but I will fuck his wife. behind his back. Just remarkable stuff. Remarkable
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, and I love the very. It's funny. Until this second, I forgot. I was thinking maybe that like the ending of the book was O'Shaughnessy getting arrested, but then I just remember no. The ending of the book is him going back to his office, and uh, his partner's wife, who he's still sort of been leading on, is like shows up at the door and is and he's like, send her in.
All right, fine. Time to deal with this one. Yeah, I've sent the other one to jail. Let me deal with this one.
And like he's not particularly like strong when it comes to women, so you have to wonder like is this just going to keep going with this woman who he doesn't even like?
Yeah, that's a good point, because it is really interesting that, I mean, we are very genre savvy at this point, right? It's almost 100 years since this book was written. This woman walks into his front door, and we're immediately like, no, don't trust her, Sam. What are you doing? Then his secretary says, I think she's one of the good ones, and we're like, don't think so. But yet he still like kind of can't help himself. And almost as if he does have kind of as horribly as he treats women, he also seems to have a blind spot when it comes to them, which I think is part of these type of stories, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you get the feeling that's the same thing with Iva, or Eva. I don't know how you actually say it, but like I have the book right here in front of me. When his secretary says Iva is here, it says Spade, looking down at his desk, nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, he said, and shivered. Well, send her in.
Oh, I love it. What a great book.
It's perfect.
That's what I mean about a feel bad book. It's just like he wins, but he still has to deal with this. He never gets to escape from being Sam Spade.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's delightful.
I liked Effie. I thought she was a good character. I don't really have much to say beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, again, she's filling like the trope of this is a woman in his orbit that he's not sleeping with. I think.
Yeah, unclear.
Yeah, but that like, they both obviously have this like very strong working relationship, where he relies on her quite a bit. And she's like the put upon secretary that wants to quit maybe, but can't because she's maybe secretly in love with this guy, but also maybe just like has a lot of respect for him and like actually likes the job, yada, yada, yada. Like this is another trope, but I think she works very, very well in the trope. I enjoy her a lot.
Yeah, I think maybe I read it as more insinuating that they had like an on again, off again thing, or like you said, that she was in love with him. There was a lot of them like touching.
Yeah.
Or like he would like bury his face in her hip or something really sort of intimate like that.
Yeah.
But maybe it's sort of the inverse thing where it's like, well, that is an intimate gesture, but like it's also sort of a gesture of like seeking comfort, whereas the way he treats these other women is more brutal and direct, whereas he's actually showing Effie this like softer side of himself that he doesn't show them. I don't know, and it was all subtextual. Like that's another place where not doing the descriptions of what they're thinking and feeling is fun, because you totally have to just guess what is these people's relationship based on the way they're behaving.
Well, part of that is also like this was a book written in the 30s, and it feels like it's trying very hard to actually not be too explicit. Like, I mean, when he does sleep with O'Shaughnessy, like it's just like the door closes, and then the next morning they wake up next to each other, and that's like all the book has to say about that. So like we don't know. I think part of his relationship with Effie is probably by design. Are they or aren't they? And yeah, you're right. The not getting to see in anyone's mind is certainly part of that. What a like, it's so funny that I just didn't notice that at all while I was reading, and then it became so clear. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I noticed, like if I hadn't basically stumbled across that factoid, I would have been saying like it's just such a cold and distant authorial voice. But it's like, well, that's why. It's because you never know how he feels when anything is happening. You're just seeing him do things
Yeah.
Which makes him, it also makes him way more unpredictable, which makes it more fun to watch him, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're from moment to moment, you're like, is he going to explode with anger? Is he going to appear to explode with anger as part of a ruse? Is he going to be cold? I also, yeah. So I like this thread because very often he'll get angry. Like he's not your totally cold, calculating detective. He has a temper, but also at the same time, you're never actually sure if and when he's really angry.
Yeah.
Versus just sort of making a show to manipulate someone or distract someone. Even now, even having finished the book, I actually lean somewhat toward, I don't know if he was ever angry at any point.
Yeah, maybe not.
It's hard to say, right? You can't really say.
Well, and like, at what point did he figure out that Bridget was the one responsible for shooting his partner? Was it like the very, very beginning, like right away? Did he piece that together and was just like stringing them all along, or was it not at the very end? And again, the book gives us no window into that. Like, he just, like, once everything else is dealt with, then he turns on her and is like, all right, now that I've dealt with all those guys, it's time for me to deal with you. And I've known all this. He doesn't like say I've known the whole time, but maybe he did. And maybe all this has been one big ruse from his perspective.
I got the sense that he suspected the whole time, but maybe he didn't want it to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like, he really hates, Wilmer, the kid. Like, he really seems to hate him, and I don't know, again, to your point, is that really just his anger with this kid, or is part of his constant need to like dismiss him and be rude to him and disarm him like 17 times throughout the course of the novel, like part of a ploy to eventually get him to turn on his employer? Like, it maybe both is probably the right answer, but like, it's just so perfectly done and so perfectly handled that like he just fucks this kid over so many times.
Yeah.
And then, like, of course the kid ends up shooting his boss at the end, and he's like, yeah, that about figures. He probably should have seen that coming.
Right. Carson in the chat points out that while we're talking about the novel avoiding sort of breaking taboos of the time, I forget what it does exactly, but it manages to communicate that the kid tells him "fuck you" without actually saying those words. It's just like, I forget what it said, man. It was great because it leaves no ambiguity at all, but it doesn't actually say it. He's got a real way with words, by the way. Like,
he does.
Like, everything about the book, we've talked a lot about the narrative, obviously, and the characters, but like, just as it's almost poetic. Like, just the construction of sentences, or these perfectly punchy little haikus. I just love the way it's written.
Yeah, for sure. Like, to the point where, and I know I like close my eyes and I see Humphrey Bogart as Sam Spade just because, how could I not? And I read that. I watched that movie well before I read this book, but like, some of the writing here, it just seems like it's the part that Humphrey Bogart was like born to play. I don't know, like this is when he's talking. I have my book open here. When he's talking to Bridget about her going to jail, he says, "I'm going to send you over. The chances you'll get off with life. That means you'll be out again in 20 years. You're an angel. I'll wait for you. If they hang you, I'll always remember you." It's just like, it's perfect, like, tongue-in-cheek kind of humor. Like that's not explicitly funny, but I can just imagine Humphrey Bogart saying it, probably because he says it in the movie. But like, it's so sharp and clever, and I think in a book where the only window you have into the mindset of your characters is the dialogue, that dialogue becomes extremely important. And so it has to be both revealing but not feel like exposition. It has to be revealing of character, revealing of plot, revealing of everything. And so it's putting a lot of onus on your dialogue. And I just think the dialogue in this book is just fantastic.
Yeah, I should mention the audiobook. Really excellent audiobook. He does a really good job. Like, there's a very specific Sam Spade voice that's just very harsh and flat and direct. And then but then he has a great, distinct voices for each of the women characters. And then I love the Gutman voice, which is like this deep baritone, very mellifluous and persuasive, and and he changed. It's very seamless, very very well done audiobook overall. Really liked it.
Awesome. Man, we've only been going for like 40 minutes, but this is a pretty short book. I'm running out of things to say about this book other than I just found it utterly delightful and fun. Like, so I guess the question for you, are you going to want to like go through and then read the complete Dashiell Hammett like bibliography at this point?
I hadn't thought about it, honestly. I certainly didn't go out and do that immediately.
Yeah, it is interesting because I don't think I'm going to. As much as I enjoyed this book, I don't feel the need to like explore the greater works of Sam Spade. I mean, maybe one or two more. What I do want to do is like hop around this genre, right? So like I've read a little bit of Raymond Chandler. I want to read a little bit more Raymond Chandler. There's James M. Cain. The Postman Always Rings Twice is a book I haven't read. So like there's a lot of books in this time period, in this kind of vintage legacy crime noir detective stories that I haven't read a lot of, that I would like to explore because I enjoyed this one so much. So yeah, it's really interesting. Like sometimes we do these author things and I just like come out of it saying, I need to read it. I love this so much. I need to read everything this author has ever written. I need to do it right away. I'm going to move stuff around on my to be read pile to prioritize this. I think Aqualungfish is saying something that I think aligns with me pretty well here. I got everything I need to know about him from this book. He did it too well in this one story where you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need any more Sam Spade. But I do want to play in this genre more, I guess.
I definitely feel like a great benefit to having read this because now it'll slightly shade the way I read all detective fiction going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I don't need to read a whole bunch of books. And I mean, maybe there's a couple of other like, everyone says this one is the best. Maybe read those too, but it's not a top priority. And this isn't a criticism.
If you've read no Raymond Chandler, I think you would enjoy Raymond Chandler. And then I haven't read The Postman Always Rings Twice, which is probably like one of the most well-known classics in this genre.
It's interesting because I guess, yeah, I already kind of said this, but like the thing I kind of go to detective fiction for is like cerebral mind games and really sort of like the author impressing us with their own intelligence via the characters. I'm a sucker for that. And that's not really what this is, but I really love the character level work. And like we talked about a bunch, the ambiguity of like, who is this protagonist that we're following around? Is he a piece of garbage or is he awesome? That's the thing we find out at the end. Like that, to me, that's the mystery, right? It's a mystery novel. I don't really care about the Maltese Falcon. I care about the moral rectitude of Sam Spade.
Yeah,
that was the mystery.
Isn't it so great that the Falcon was just a fake the whole time? Just the whole time.
It is. I mean, what's funny is Spade doesn't care either way.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I kind of like wanted it to be real perversely, but it's way funnier and sort of more appropriate that it is fake.
There is a part of me that just and I don't know if the book ever comes right out and says this, but there's a part of me that just thinks maybe the whole thing was just made up. Like he tells this very fantastical story of this bird crafted as tribute to the king that was lost along the way and that eventually covered up with black I forget what it is, but just
enamel.
Enamel, thank you. Maybe that whole story was made up, and I love this image of Gutman like chasing this thing that just flat out doesn't exist. Like what they reason is that the guy figured out how valuable it was based on their inquiries, their bumbling inquiries, and switches it out for a fake. But what if like the thing he had was a fake the whole time?
Yeah.
I love that idea, and yeah, there's nothing in the book that says that, but
I think it leaves it open to what I love about it is the notion that maybe this fake statue has been changing hands between gullible thieves for like 500 years.
Yeah. The perfect kind of plot device in a book about how people will just kill each other over nothing.
Yeah.
Here's the nothing.
Well, so I've been watching a bunch of those YouTube videos where people troll scammers. in increasingly elaborate ways. So like my mind jumps to like, well, maybe someone's con earlier in this chain of events was like, all right, there's this statue and it's worth a lot, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna, and then they do one of the classic scam things where it's like, all right, but you're gonna pay me for half and then you're gonna get it, and then it's just a scam, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's how the mystery, that's how the myth, that's how the myth starts. That because somebody introduced the idea of this
Yeah. Yeah.
as a way of conning people. That to me sounds really kind of organic and likely, actually.
For sure, for sure. I love that. It's my headcanon from now on. The one thing, so we are kind of in the middle of trying to decide what we want to do next for the Doofcast and our next ongoing series. I think it would be fun to do like a mini series on like film noir and like hit a like one of the founding like noir films of maybe each generation or each decade or something. Cause like this is a series of movies that I really like. Like I honestly, I finished reading this book and I really wanted to go back and watch the Maltese Falcon. I started it. I got like 15 minutes in and I got distracted with something else and I wasn't able to finish it before this. But I really want to go back and rewatch that movie. And I love film noir a lot. I love all the different variations of it, and it'd be fun to like spend some time with it.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do a stretch of noir, sure.
Yeah, we would have to spend some time figuring out what that would look like which films we would pick.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know the genre very well, so I don't really have a good answer. But yeah, that'd be a good little project.
Mm-hmm. L.A. Confidential, man, it's got to be in there somewhere. God, I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one, actually.
Yeah. Are we allowed to watch that? Because Kevin Spacey's in it.
Yes, you just put your hand up like this whenever he's on the screen.
Okay.
But then you look between your fingers because the acting is still so good.
Well, because he plays a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, good. No, he doesn't.
I'm pretty sure he does.
He plays.
Doesn't he play the detective that is on the show and like, or the one that consults for the show and is like a really. They're all pieces of shit, Matt. That's the point.
Well, they're all slightly pieces of shit, but he's. I remember what happens to his character, so I think there's like a.
Yeah, they like. I mean, okay, we're not going to spoil L.A. Confidential, but he's definitely a piece of shit.
Okay, I mean, I think they all are. Like you said, there's no good characters in that movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah. My point is that Kevin Spacey comes off as a remarkable actor because he is very, very good at playing awful human beings.
Yeah.
Wonder why that could be.
How could this happen?
Yeah, yes. Just don't know. All right, folks in the chat, anything else you wanted to talk about? We didn't. First, I just wanted to point out some people that there are some first timers here. Bastard Sync, if you're still here, thanks for joining us. They just found Kingslingers, Matt. So it's fun that people would just find our podcast at the very end of it.
Yeah.
I also see Corey, who's not used to our voices being this slow.
Yeah. We're trying to talk as fast as we can, but
yeah, I'm trying to talk really fast.
Yeah.
Anything else any of y'all wanted to talk about on this book? Like I said, short book, 200 pages, not too bad, but that just kind of means there's not too much to get into here. Just a delightful read, though. Really enjoyed this one.
Yeah. I liked that it was set in San Francisco in 1930 because I'm fairly familiar with San Francisco and the
30s.
And not the 30s. That's kind of what was magical about it. Is it was like, oh, I recognize these street names, but it conjures a picture of a much different world. I don't know. Like I found it very easy to visualize the city that he was describing, kind of superimposed onto the city that I know. But it's like they go to the docks, and there's you're imagining a 1930s dock, and instead of the one with the Star Wars AT-ATs.
Sure. Yeah.
You know about the AT-ATs?
I do not. What are you talking about?
Well, actually, I think this is in Oakland, not necessarily in San Francisco. But there's like these cranes in the San Francisco Bay, and the way they're constructed is like, two sets of two pylons, and then a crane that goes across the top of them, and then sticks out over the water, so it kind of looks like an AT-AT.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
And this is apparently like the inspiration for AT-ATs. Like that's what I've heard anyway. People can make things up, but I heard that was the inspiration for the AT-AT design.
I just want to read one crime noir book that you don't relate to Star Wars. Just one time.
Well, I guess we'll have to try again then. There were no AT-ATs in this book, is my point. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Did you? This is a total non sequitur, but there was a comment on one of our Kingslingers episodes on YouTube today that was like, "Okay, guys, we fucking know you've read Lord of the Rings."
Never gonna stop. Never.
Oh, delightful.
I wonder how many episodes, like percentage-wise, how many percent of episodes we mention Tolkien or make a Lord of the Rings reference of some kind.
I think that they were in the middle of the Wastelands. It was an episode on the Wastelands, and I think there was a stretch there in the early Dark Tower that it was literally every episode. And to be fair, King is doing that on purpose. Like, It's not like you weren't picking up anything that he was putting down. Like, you absolutely were. We're just doing it a lot. So,
yeah. Well, good.
All right. We are going to lock down this poll in just a sec. Let me just share the link once again for people that maybe showed up a little late, just so you make sure you get to vote. Remember, you can vote for 2 of the 5 options. We will add those to our Patreon poll and announce a winner just here in a couple minutes.
Awesome. I'm excited.
I think Aqualungfish is right, Matt, that there was definitely a time where you like just started doing it like intentionally for fun. In moments that were probably a little bit more of a stretch.
Yeah, definitely intentionally.
Delightful.
I get why people say that, but people should understand how often I think about Lord of the Rings just as a baseline.
It's very often. I speak for experience. It's extremely often.
And then you just like superimpose that onto a man who is listening to the Dark Tower audiobook, and it's like, it's gonna work its way in there.
It definitely will.
Everyone thought the Shelob cave was a stretch. I still don't think that was a stretch at all.
Wait, what was your Shelob cave?
That
comparison?
A woman who is a spider goes into the cave and takes Susanna with her. It's
at the end of
Shelob.
Wolves of the Calla, just going into the cave.
She's a spider.
Yeah, no, that's a stretch.
It's not. We just lost a listener. I just saw the number go down.
All I'm saying is I distinctly remember some episode where you went something like, "Oh, the show's almost over. I forgot to say this about Lord of the Rings."
Okay.
Yeah. Our finale is next week for Kingslingers, in case people didn't know, and it's actually just going to be a stealth review of Lord of the Rings. Surprise! I spoiled it. I'm sorry. All right, I am locking down the poll at this point. Going to refresh it one more time. All right, it is locked in. So this was actually really cool, Matt, because we had a tie from Patreon between the Lev Grossman book, The Bright Sword, a book that just came out this week. I think it's the first novel he's written since he finished the Magician's Trilogy, which is a series of books you and I really, really enjoyed. And it was tied with Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, which is a book that you and I have both read, but it's been a while. And of course, it's a movie we really, really love. So we've never covered Crichton on the podcast, on the book club at all. So I thought it'd be fun to do. And it was a very popular choice, but it lost. It lost in the end to Lev Grossman's The Bright Sword. I am actually really excited about this. As stated, I really, really, really loved the Magician's books a whole lot. And I've been looking forward to reading his new book since it came out.
Yeah, I love The Magicians as well. And I noticed this book came out recently, and I'm glad we get the excuse to read it. So
that is correct. All right. Jurassic Park will be back for another round next month. So will A Canticle for Leibowitz, which, by the way, folks, like, this is a book that I've been wanting to read for such a long time. I hear incredible things about it. So I'm just saying maybe push for this one more, because I think it's going to be worth all of our time for sure.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'd be happy to talk about Jurassic Park, but Canticle for Leibowitz is one that's been on my list forever. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we will be back in a month on December 6th. I'm saying this out loud for those listening at home and for me, because, yes, I was the one who, on Thursday's episode of the Doofcast last week, Matt said, all right, so we got apes today and falcons tomorrow. And I said, what? I said, no, that's next week. And Matt said, no, it's not. It's the first time that's happened in how many years of book club, but... so we had to push. Sorry about that. It will not happen. It will not happen this time. December 6th, Friday night, we will be back to talk about Lev Grossman's The Bright Sword.
all right. I like how you just revealed my communication style to everyone, where instead of saying, so you did read the book club book, right? I just make a little quip like that and just let things play out.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, this is how we both deal with each other, where I never like to directly ask Matt, have you watched the movie for Doofcast yet? What I more do is kind of come around to it in a backwards way, which is like never not directly ask the question, but maybe just like send a message that's just like, oh man, these monkeys, huh? And just see his reaction to it.
Yeah, give me a chance to be like, oh yeah.
Well, sometimes the message goes unanswered for a day, and then that's my, hadn't watched it yet.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good.
I don't know why we can't just be direct with each other, but it's worked. It's worked this far. So
it's a good system. It's a functional system.
Why change what's already perfect?
Exactly. Anyway, if you like what we do here at Doof Media and you want to see more of it, then head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Doof Media and consider donating to support our organization. At any available level, you'll get access to the vote for the books that we talk about each month, as well as a bunch of other cool exclusive features and bonus podcasts and so forth. So go check it out.
Yeah, we've got our podcast covering the show From that's going to be coming out here in, I think, just a couple weeks. Matt, when actually are we doing that? We need to figure that out.
Yeah, we didn't schedule that, but we will do that.
No. Yeah. It's going to be soon. It's going to be soon-ish, and it'll be great-ish. I think, like, in my head... In my head, I was just like, let's get through the end of Kingslingers, and then I'll think about all this other stuff we have to do. And that's next week. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. If you have any questions or comments or just want to reach out to us, you can always find us on Twitter at Doof Media, email us at doofmedia@gmail.com, or head over to the subreddit r/Doof Media. You can also find us on Instagram at Doof Media as well. We try to be active on there. It ebbs and flows. You know, how social media is hard. It's very difficult.
It's labor intensive. Yeah.
Who's got time for it? Not me.
Yeah, not me.
All right. We will see you on December 6th to talk about Lev Grossman's, what was the name of the book?
The Bright Sword.
The Bright Sword. There it is. I think this is, so the first was his take on Narnia. I believe this is his take on Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So
sweet.
Should be great. Thank you, everyone. It was fun hanging out with you. If you are listening to the audio of this, maybe come hang out next month. I think you'll have a good time. All right.
Good night.
We did it. Good night. I forgot to bring up the recording to stop the recording. So now it's just still going awkwardly. There it is. The recording's done. We're gonna sign off here. Remember when we used to have enough time to where we could like hang out after the recording and just chill for a little bit?
Simpler times.
When we were young and strong.
We were so much younger.
Someone posted on Reddit like a picture from our book club doing the Carrie novel in 2017, and I just kept looking at my beard and the lack of white hair in it, and I was like, it's been a rough 7 years.
Oh God, I can't.
Where did all this come from?
I can't do it.
Come from? It looks so dark and full of life.
I know. It's the weird thing about like the late 30s is like you feel like you aren't aging, and but you're like because you're aging very, very slowly. But then you see a picture and you're like, oh God.
Oh dear Lord. Yeah. It's true, all of it. Yeah, that white hair. Oh well, I could dye it. I'm just not gonna. I just don't care enough. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's part of me. It's part of who I am.
It's distinguished.
Yeah. All right, folks. Have a good weekend. We'll see you later.
Later.